This baby was born twice. Yep, you read that correctly. Margaret Bomer first sensed something was wrong when her ultrasound technician stayed unusually quiet during a routine 16-week prenatal checkup. It had already been an arduous road to get to that point. Months earlier, Bomer had suffered a miscarriage. When she conceived again, she and her husband were delighted to discover it was with twins, but they lost one of the babies about 6 weeks into the pregnancy. Soon, doctors would approach Bomer with more grim news. The child she was carrying had sacrococcygeal teratoma, a rare tumor that appeared at the base of the baby's tailbone. It is estimated these types of tumors occur in about 1 of 40,000 pregnancies. If left unchecked, the tumor could continue taking her baby's blood supply and eventually cause heart failure.
If you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story.
Bomer and her husband were crushed. Only 2 weeks ago, they had learned the baby would be a girl and were excited about the possibility of naming her Lynn Lee after both of her grandmothers. Now doctors were advising the couple from Lewisville, Texas, about 25 miles northwest of Dallas, to visit 2 more specialized hospitals in Houston for additional opinions. My prenatal doctor was very concerned about it because of the size of the tumor being that early along, said Bomer, 38. She felt like that there was a strong possibility that Lynn Lee would not make it to term. In Houston, one hospital strongly recommended the Bomers terminate the pregnancy. Performing open fetal surgery, essentially removing the baby before term in order to operate on the fetus, was too risky, doctors there said. But without such a surgery, Lynn Lee would likely die. Meanwhile, doctors at Texas Children's Hospital examined the tumor with cautious optimism. They agreed that in utero surgery would be required, but as it happened, 2 doctors there, Daryl Cass and Oluyinka Oyutoy, had successfully done such a procedure 7 years before. They explained to Bomer that it would indeed be extremely risky, but at 20 weeks into the pregnancy, the tumor was already almost as big as the fetus, and about 4 times larger than what would be considered the threshold for surgical intervention, Oyutoy said. The tumor was putting such strain on Lynn Lee's heart, Bomer said. According to Cass and Oyutoy, it wasn't really a matter of if I needed in utero surgery, it was kind of a matter of when. The goal was to get me to 24 weeks. Bomer returned to her Dallas area home and waited. Day by day, the tumor increased in size until it appeared that Lynn Lee was sitting on a large balloon inside the womb. Unlike Bomer's first 2 pregnancies, she hardly felt Lynn Lee kicking or moving inside her, and she knew it was because the tumor was encroaching on her daughter's space. At 23 weeks, the tumor had grown large enough that doctors sent Bomer back to Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. I went down there thinking, I'll be here for checkups all week, Bomer said. Instead, doctors told her Lynn Lee might not survive 2 more days without intervention. I went into surgery that night. Before the procedure, Bomer and her husband met in a boardroom with more than a dozen doctors. They outlined the options, risks, and possible outcomes of the surgery. Bomer was 23 weeks and 5 days into her pregnancy. If the surgery failed and Lynn Lee needed to be delivered, the baby would be just on the edge of viability, doctors said. They handed the Bomers a form. If she's born, do you want us to do resuscitate if needed? Bomer remembers them asking. If she's not doing well, do you want us to allow her to pass? Bomer had been doing okay up until that point, but it was then that she burst into tears. To think we had come so far to try to save her, she said. I was very nervous and scared, but my husband and I were focused on whatever we needed to do to try to save our baby. It took Cass, Oyutoy, and a team of about 20 others to perform the surgery itself. The majority of the time was spent making meticulous incisions into the uterus, then carefully pulling out the lower half of Lynn Lee's body. In the middle of the procedure, Lynn Lee's heart stopped and needed to be restarted. She required a blood transfusion as well. These are babies that are essentially dying, Oyutoy said. You have a child who's already sick, and the operation itself can make her sicker. After removing about 90% of the tumor, surgeons placed Lynn Lee back into the womb. Closing the uterus proved tricky as well. The doctors needed to seal the membrane to the uterus, doing it in a watertight fashion that, even after 23 weeks, would continue stretching as the pregnancy progressed. After about 5 hours, the surgery was complete. And then the real work really starts, Olutoy said, referring to the challenge of carrying the baby to term with a now increased risk of the uterus rupturing. Bomer was ordered to stay in Houston on bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy. To doctors' relief and surprise, Lynn Lee continued to grow. Her heart got much better now that it didn't have to work as hard pumping through this huge tumor, Olutoy noted. On June 6, nearly 36 weeks into her pregnancy, Bomer underwent a C-section. The newborn infant, who emerged singing, weighing 5 pounds and 5 ounces, was nothing like the small little gelatinous baby Olutoy had operated on weeks earlier, he said. Watching Lynn Lee come out crying and kicking was really very exciting to see, he said. Her whole leg during the surgery was barely the size of my finger. They grow so much over such a short period of time. You can say she's seen the world twice, he added. Filling out her birth certificate, the Bomers officially gave Lynn Lee her middle name, Hope. At 8 days old, Lynn Lee underwent another surgery to remove the rest of the tumor from her tailbone. She may require an operation in the future to reconstruct some pelvic muscles, but is otherwise recovering well. Lynn Lee will need to continue to return to Texas Children's Hospital for regular checkups. We're going to get very close, Olutoy tells all his patients, whom he says he often knows from before they are born all the way up into adulthood. The baby is nearing her 5-month birthday and hitting all her milestones, Bomer said. She giggles easily and enjoys being near her older sisters, she said. It's been kind of overwhelming how much attention her story's gotten, but we're very thankful, Bomer said. I can tell you when we were told this very long name, we were scared and didn't know what that was and had never heard of it. So I'm glad that it's getting attention so that others who are diagnosed can know that they're not alone.
If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.